Hey, it's Sandra. Welcome to another episode of Asexualise, my asexual life. This is a place to be for education about asexuality, and I talk about things that are all asexual. So hopefully my voice will last out. Please subscribe and hit the bell icon. So what do you do if you get a guy who stands you up on a date? Now, what would the average woman, girl do in this scenario, right? She'd probably go home, cry her heart out, be really peed off with the guy, really upset, go through all sorts of like, what the hell happened? Why did you do this to me? And then she might blame herself. And this is how the cycle goes, right? Do you do that? No, completely the wrong thing to do. You do not waste your time over a guy that cannot be bothered with you. Let me repeat that. You do not waste your time on a guy that cannot be bothered with you. If a guy stands you up, it's his problem, not yours. All you have to do is look after yourself and have a damn good time anyway, in spite of the fact that that guy treated you badly, right? So you give him the benefit of the doubt. And this is what I'm gonna say happened, so you can find out everything that happened last night, which was like crazy stuff going on. Like, I didn't even know what to title this video because I could have chosen a number of titles for this video, and each one would have been valid, and each one's a talking point in this video. But I felt I had to tell the whole story because I share my own asexual life journey in order to help you in yours. So I'm an asexual who's sex repulsed, but I'm also a hyper romantic and a hyper kisser. This poses problems because I do get attracted to guys who are highly heterosexual, highly sexual, in other words, and they get attracted to me. This is what I've observed. This is what I've noticed. And I predominantly get attracted to younger foreign guys in the early to mid 20s, an asexual cougar. Younger one. I label myself that. I'm happy for that title because I usually do not kiss older guys. What I mean by older guys is usually guys in their 30s and 40s. I have actually been with a heterosexual older guy dating him years ago, and he was older in birth certificate age than me, and he was in his 40s. So I have done it once, okay? So anyway, what you do is you do not go home if someone stands you up and be miserable. You go out on your own and have a frigging good time anyway. Why? Because this will raise your confidence, raise your self-esteem. It won't keep you moping about a guy that really doesn't give a shit about you. And it'll stop you going back with him when he decides, oh, well, I'm just going to keep her and play her, right? Because this is how those guys work. They play you. So they'll make up some stupid excuse as to why that they stood you up. They'll gaslight you and all this type of thing. So I told you that the night before I kissed a young and foreign guy, and I had a date with him, and he's 22 years old, Pakistani guy, right? I told you that. And I met him at a club because I was out with a meetup.com group, but then they went to a club later, and I like to dance on my own predominantly. There's a tip I have for you. If you're looking to date a guy, like you're looking for a guy in a nightclub or to kiss, then if you're on your own, you're more likely to be able to get a guy, or a guy is more able to get a girl. This type of thing. I should talk from the girl point of view, able to get a guy, because the guy sees you on your own. So then he knows that you're kind of like more, either it depends on what your body language is. So if you don't want to dance with a guy, then you literally don't look around the room. If a guy approaches you for dancing, you turn your back on him, you look the other way. So I go out dancing sometimes, and I just not in the mood to dance with any guys, or any of the guys that are in the room I don't like. So if a guy's looking at me, I will avoid eye contact with him. I will look the other way. I will turn my body the other way and show that I'm not interested, right? So if you're not interested in someone, which is, as an asexual person, is very important, because there's lots of asexuals that won't even go to clubs like I do. But if you're an asexual person who's not interested in someone, right, you can show it through your body language, through your actions, through your mannerisms, and through your facial expressions, right? So you would be standoffish, you would like be like this, right? Body language, very important, right? So bear in mind, this guy stood me up. Now, what happened? I told him, I texted him on his phone because he gave me his phone number. He pinged me his phone number the other day and connected with me on Facebook. So he had 2 ways of connecting with me. So he had no excuses. But there was some red flags with this guy, which I didn't share all the red flags on this channel about him. But basically, he had lied on his Facebook about his age, which, you know, if a guy can lie about one thing, he can lie about anything. I've told you this before. And then he's like, well, if I was dishonest, I wouldn't share my Facebook with you, would I? I'm like, just because you share your Facebook doesn't mean to say you never lie. So anyway, he had a different name on Facebook to what he told me. I do know some foreign guys tend to use different names. They tend to have a British name and a foreign name, which is their birth name. So they use different names. And I've heard a lot of times before that the lots of different stories about the birth age not being correct, like they don't know their real age, or their birth certificate says different, or in this case they lied to Facebook to get an account younger than they are. I'm surprised Facebook hasn't brought in like a passport or driver license scenario where, you know what I mean, but I guess, I mean, some, even if you're younger, I think in your teens you can still have a passport to go abroad, so they should bring this in something like that, really. But anyway, I digress. So I messaged him on his phone to say I was going to be a few minutes late. Well, I was going to be a few minutes late. I didn't use the word late. I'm going to be a few minutes because I'm putting on my shoes. This was like 1 minute to 11. I was meant to be there, but he literally lives up the road, like literally walk out, turn left up my road, right? And if a guy is interested, he'll wait for you anyway, and he'll certainly respond to your messages. Now, I hadn't heard from this guy all day since he set up the date with me, and that is not a good sign for a start. That is a red flag, because if a guy's really interested in you, he should really confirm and say, hey, looking forward to seeing you tonight. Really excited for it, that type of thing, right? So the fact he wasn't doing that's a red flag. Obviously, he lied about his age on Facebook. He's got a different name, and these things are not good, right? So I said to him, oh, I'm outside now. Like, where are you? I think I said, I'm just leaving, and I'm outside now. Where are you? And I was stood there and I waited a few minutes, and he's just not responding to my messages, right? So I gave him like about 5 minutes because, you know, I thought, okay, give him some time. But this is a guy that was kissing me loads the day before, night before, that was acting like he was really into me, right? And he originally said, when I was asking him, like, what he was asking me if I was going to the club, and then he's originally said, I'll meet you in the club. And I'm like, oh, I said, you want to meet me at the actual club or like at your place? And he was like, oh, I can come to your place, my home, meaning, and you can open the door with a smile to me. I'm like, no, I don't have guys in my home. So he kept pressurizing me with what he was saying about me having him in my home, and I'm not interested in a guy having sex with me in my home. I'm not interested in sex at all. I'm a sex repulsed asexual, just a very sexual behavior one, if you like, because I'm a hyper romantic and hyper kisser. So guys can take that like to mean I like sex, and I don't. But I like my clothes on, and I like only to be touched in certain non-sexual places, right? And so anyway, so what happened is, like I said, he stood me up, and he originally said about the club, and then in the end, though, he said about coming to my place, and I said, I'm like, no, and then he's like, oh, so which one do you want to meet, the club or my place? Basically, it was outside his place. It was a choice, so I said, I'll meet you outside your place, and he's like, 11. He chose the time. I didn't choose the time. So when he stood me up, I thought, I bet he's already in the club, and he's just lying. Right, that he's, you know, I bet he's already in there, probably trying to get a woman, right? So anyway, I went to the club on my own because I thought, I'm all dressed up. There ain't no way I'm going back home, because I'm not going to let my night be spoiled by some guy who I've only just met, who clearly couldn't give a shit about me, and his red flag. He was gaslighting me in messages as well, a bit, which is a huge red flag. So you could have argued, like, why did I ever even think about going on the date? And I was really anxious about it, but I believe everything works out in divine timing in its own right, which is what it did. He proved that. I was glad it happened like that, because he proved categorically he is a liar the way it worked out, and that he was no good for me. So there's no what ifs with him. Do you know what I mean? Like, had I not put myself in that scenario, I could have been thinking he might still be an okay guy, even though he was not okay in messages. Because when a person gaslights you, they blur your reality. So then you question yourself a bit like, oh, like maybe he's okay then, or maybe this is acceptable, which is really bad. Anyway, I was quite bothered by the fact that I was even dating this guy later on. I was like going out shopping. I'm like, no, go, Sandra. But I'm glad everything happened for a reason. So I went into the club, and then I messaged him on Messenger saying, we're not suitable. It's, you stood me up. You're not responding to my messages. You're not a suitable guy for me. Bye. And then he's like, oh, I'm outside now. I just went to the toilet. I lead a busy life. I get busy. I'm human. And it's like, it's no excuse. And I said, it's no excuse. It's not okay to not respond to messages. It's not okay to stand someone up. And it's not okay to lie. And I can find a better human. Or better humans. And I said, so bye. And he's like, and he was asking me where I was, because I said I wasn't telling him. But he told me he was outside his home. Bear this in mind. But I've noticed a pattern with Pakistani guys, particularly, right? Because the last younger foreign Pakistani guy did this with me as well. So there's patterns of behavior, which is just so predictable. So I thought, because he's already originally suggested meeting me at the club, and he wasn't there, he's still going to go out. He stood me up, so he's probably in the club trying to dance with other women, right? Or he thinks he'll happen to see me there and snog me anyway, without basically even giving a shit about me. So anyway, I was in the toilet texting him this at the actual club. I come out of the toilet on the dance floor, and who is on the dance floor? Him. And he wasn't actually dancing with the club. Total lie. No doubt about it, right? And there was this other foreign guy that looked like he was with him. I wasn't sure if this other foreign guy was with him or his friend, or if the other foreign guy was just happened to be there as well in the club dancing with him, because sometimes foreign guys dance together, especially if they were on their own. They come on their own but dance together, if you know what I mean, because it's kind of like camaraderie. So yeah, I wasn't sure about that. So anyway, I was at the front of the dance floor. I don't think this guy saw me immediately. But I'm not sure. The younger guy, I'm not sure he saw me come on the dance floor immediately, but I saw him. Because later he was trying to catch my eye, as much to say, oh my God, I'm here. Like, hello, type. He was like looking like this at me. And I just wasn't interested. Because at that point, I was with someone else. So yes, what happened was I was dancing near the DJs, and I was dancing on my own, minding my own business, and then I then, when you can kind of tell someone's there, but you don't know if they're there, I turned around and this older foreign guy was there. Short, dark hair and clean shaven though. Now, I don't usually dance with older foreign guys, as you know. Like, it's not my thing, right? And I was in two minds whether to dance with this guy or not, because I know older guys like to get physically close as well, usually, and I can't usually be close to an older I can't usually be physically close to an older guy. But he looked like he was in his 30s, which is older than I would usually go for. I'm usually interested in early to mid 20s. And so the younger guy that I saw the night before, that was the one who lied, that was actually in the club, in terms of aesthetic attraction, I was more attracted to him aesthetically and romantically in the aesthetic sense. However, the night with this older guy ended up being very amazing until the very end. I will tell you about that. So, this older guy started dancing with me. He was doing like really good dancing with me. And then he was holding my hand, and then he was holding me close to him. So I had to make a conscious decision at that point in my mind, like, do I dance with the older guy or not? Because he probably will want to kiss me in the end. And then you have to decide how much closeness you want with this older guy. How much physical contact you want with him. This is going through my mind while I'm dancing with him, and if you would be prepared to kiss him or not, because he looks like he wants to kiss you. So you have to understand, like, all these things. Are you prepared to do that? But in my mind, I was like, yes, because I think I should experience what it's like to be with an older foreign guy in his 30s, like older than I would usually go for. Because I haven't really had that experience apart from once when I was like with a heterosexual guy in a relationship, not in a relationship, in a dating scenario for like 3 months. But he looked younger and he was short, dark hair, clean shaven, and he looked younger. So I thought, yes, I think I should have this experience. Maybe an older guy would be better for me in terms of like maybe he would be more like not needing so much attention from younger girls all the time. maybe he wouldn't have a need for sex as much, and maybe he would treat me better and these type of things. But as the night went on, he did treat me much better than the younger guy in terms of the boundaries. So he did hold my hand. He did like hold me close on the dance floor. And first of all, it's weird holding an older guy's hand because I felt his hands were bigger and older. So that was kind of really weird for me. He wasn't totally my asexual type, as in, of course, he was older. His eyes were a bit different as well, but he's got short dark hair and very clean shaven, which I loved, and his clothes were nice. He was wearing quite young clothes. Youngish, not young, completely young, but youngish, like an Iron Maiden t-shirt, which Iron Maiden's like an 80s band, so it's still a bit old, but it looked nice on him because it was like a smart black t-shirt. It was like jeans, I think it was. And he's quite tall. So when we were dancing together, I had a really great time with him dancing. I had a better time than with the younger guy because this guy was really respectful of my boundaries. I felt very safe with him, very secure with him physically. He was like touching me in all the right places, not the wrong places. Where he had his hands was great. And I'm a very sensual asexual, so I do like a lot of physical touch, but not in sexual places. And because he was older, I felt he was a lot more experienced than that with boundaries. So I really felt a lot more safer. I was a lot more comfortable, a lot more happier. I could allow him to touch me like in non-sexual places and really like lean into that and feel comfortable with that. Whereas the younger foreign guy, he was kind of like really trying to push my boundaries a lot of the time and try to touch me more in sexual places. And it's like, it's more tense when it's like that, you know? As an asexual person, I need a guy, whether it's a dating scenario, met in a club, or relationship scenario, who respects my boundaries and who knows how to touch me without me even saying how I need to be touched. But obviously, I do say how I like to be touched. If there's somewhere he's doing something that I don't like, I will say, no, I don't like that. Can you not do that again? Or can you stop doing that? Like the older guy, I was stuff later on that I was saying to him that I don't like that. So, but overall, it was a good experience because it felt like I could be sensually touched, which I really like. I could be held close. I could be dance with him like young dancing, like kind of like a bit more separate, but he was still holding my hand the majority of the time. And I felt like I could get my asexual needs met with him really well without compromise or too much compromise of my own asexuality, if you know what I mean. So I really liked that about him. I felt like he was taking better care of me than the younger guy. I felt he was more into me than the younger guy was. It's clearly more into me. And he bought me a drink, a bottle of water it was. Like, made sure he just got me water with the actual top still screwed on. So I knew that he hadn't spiked it or anything. Because I don't usually accept offers of drinks from guys. But I told him I just want a bottle of water, but the cap was still screwed on. He showed me on his phone it was definitely water because I wasn't sure at first because I'm not used to drinking that. I used to bring my own water. But yeah, so that was like a really good experience with him. Like he had no problem holding my hand as we're walking up the stairs and no problem buying me a drink. Don't have to think twice about stuff like that. And he was really respectful of my boundaries. He was still having a good time with like kind of going woo 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 to the crowd and then like dance with each other. And I did have amazing time with him. It was a really good time. I love the dancing. I love spending time with him. Because he's so tall, I put my arms around his neck, which the guys really love that. Like the younger guy like that. And he liked that. And so when I put my hands around his neck, it was really good because I can jump up and down to the music and hold on to him is a lot more easier for me. He's very strong physically as well. So I liked all that. Like, he's muscly, the younger guy's muscly. I'm getting used to muscles now, even though I like skinny guys predominantly. I'm kind of like getting more used to muscles. I'm kind of like thinking, oh, they're not so bad. Like, they're quite nice, I suppose. I didn't think I'd ever be saying that, but yeah. But yeah, I still like skinny guys, but I kind of getting used to muscles now. It's because I've been around it so much. Like, if you've got a fear or if you've got something that you're not used to, the only way you get used to something is by being around it or doing it or mixing with it like over and over again. So if I end up kissing guys who are muscly, I associate the muscles with a good experience and good feeling if I'm feeling good about the kissing. Do you understand what I mean? So a lot of the time we do things because we associate things with them. So if you associate good and positive emotions with that thing, you're more likely to do it and do it more and more and more. But if you associate bad experiences or feelings with it, you're less likely to want to do it ever again, really. So the more positive emotions you can put on something, the better the experience will be and the more you want to do it. So for me, kissing a guy with muscles now is getting so much more easier to do, and it's getting easier to like, I'd say maybe like it a bit. And it's okay. It's acceptable to me now, and it's quite nice that the guy's strong, means he can probably pick me up if you want to. But and so I kind of do like that look a bit more than I used to, even though I still like skinny guys as well. And so for me, like, I feel it's good to have different experiences in life because that can shape your present and your future. I think it's good to experiment with what you like and don't like, because at the end of the day, I'm asexual. It's really hard for me to find a guy for a relationship. Doesn't mean to say it's impossible, but the reality is that it's difficult. And I have to understand that the way I get my kissing needs met really is by going clubbing and snogging guys at clubs. Luckily, I have no phobia or fear of kissing in public whatsoever. I am completely okay with the people walking by seeing me full on snog a guy. I don't give a shit. I really don't care. And that really helps me get my kissing needs met because I do have strong physical kissing needs. So I understand heterosexuals want sex a lot. Although I'm not sexually attracted to anyone, I can understand the feeling of really wanting something physical because I get that way with kissing. It's like I really need my kissing needs met, and there is no way, if I am going to be spending the rest of my life as a single person, which quite frankly could very well happen, then I don't want to be without kissing in my life. I don't want to be without sensual touch. I don't want to be without these things, right? So this means I have to make a conscious choice and decision. Do I allow guys who I'm not in a relationship with to do that with me if I'm comfortable enough? Which I made the conscious decision on this channel a few years ago now, but I would allow myself to do that. I think that was about 4 years ago, 2019, I think it was, November 2019, something like that. And so for me, I do have needs. I think as a human being, it's important to recognize our needs, but just make sure no one gets hurt in the process. I mean, I'm more likely to get hurt than anyone else. I do get hurt. It does hurt when a guy lies and well, it didn't matter so much that he stood me up because it turned out to be a really good thing. So going back to this, when the guy bought me a drink, the older guy bought me a drink, I had a really nice time dancing with him, holding my hand, and I did feel really comfortable around him, surprisingly for an older guy, because he was foreign. I asked him when we were getting drinks, like, where are you from? And he said, oh, I'm from Pakistan. And I'm like, how long have you been in this country? This is a very important thing I'm saying here. And he said 9 years, a long time, 9 years, right? He told me he'd been in this country a long time, 9 years. That's what he told me. That is what he told me, right? Remember that. He told me he'd been in the UK for 9 years. So, he told me he was Pakistani at this point. And while he was got me a drink, and I was sat down with him drinking my water. He drank an energy drink because he said he doesn't smoke and he doesn't drink alcohol, and I don't. So that was a bonus. I like that about him. I then saw the younger foreign guy on the dance floor because I was looking over there because my bag was actually hidden over there. And he was like looking like this at me. And I'm thinking, well, clearly you've seen me and you, you know, you're thinking that I should come over there and be with you or something. It's ridiculous. I was just having such a good time with this older guy. It turns out the older guy knew him and was like, and in the very end, I found out, in the very, very end, I found out they're basically friends and most likely even living in the same house. But I didn't realize that to the very end of my time with this older guy. I knew they were, I saw they must have known each other because what happened was, is I was dancing with the older guy. The younger guy came along and started trying to dance with the older guy. And so I realized that the younger guy and the older guy must know each other. They must probably be friends. And it looked like they come out dancing together. So he stood me up. The younger guy stood me up to go clubbing anyway with his older friend. Yeah, his older friend ended up dancing with me and basically standing him up. And in the end, like partway through the night, I think he left. Because no women were dancing with him. And he tried to pull the older guy away from me to dance with him. But the older guy, like, just went back to me. Because he's like, I mean, I'm stood here. I'm a beautiful girl. He's dancing close with me, probably experiencing these loving and romantic feelings from me. Because I'm very good at making a guy feel loved, romantic, and special with me. And making him feel truly loved in that moment. I'm very good at doing that. And I think it's very rare to get that. So, of course, he'd much rather spend time with me than his mate. And so when the younger guy was trying to pull him away to dance with him, he just like, he was going away a little bit and then he just came back. It's kind of like, what am I doing? I'd rather be with the girl, which is good. And you could argue that's really bad because it's his friend, but I did, but the younger guy shouldn't have stood me up. The younger guy stood me up in favor of going clubbing with his older friend that ended up dancing with me and spending the night dancing with me and then kissing me later as well for a long period of time. So he stood me up for the guy who ended up, in a way, standing him up and being with me. So it all worked out really well. That's the irony of the situation. That younger guy had every opportunity to meet up with me, to go clubbing with me, to kiss me all night and dance with me all night. And he didn't do that. Instead, he stood me up, he lied, and it was horrible. But his friend ended up dancing with me, spending like hours with me, kissing me, and it was really good time I had with his friend. And so it's better than the time I had with him because the older guy was really respectful of my boundaries, which meant I could be myself a lot more. I could be freer to be me in a sensual way and to not worry about that type of shit. I don't want to be with a guy where I'm worried, like where his hands are all the time. I'm still wary and a bit concerned. And I don't know if worry is the right word. I'm a bit concerned and anxious with to make sure the older guy's not touching me in places that he shouldn't be, because obviously hands wander. I was aware of that, but I felt so comfortable with him that overall he was safe and secure for me to dance with and be with physically, because I wouldn't have carried on dancing with him if I didn't feel that way. And so it serves the young guy right, to be honest. You know what I mean? No way should he be lying. No way should he be standing women up. He could have said to his friend, I'm meeting a girl to go clubbing with. I'm meeting a girl tonight because I've arranged a date, right? But clearly he's not mature enough to do that. He's not mature enough to say, hey, to his friend, hey, I've got a date with a really cute girl or whatever tonight, so I can't go clubbing with you because I'm going clubbing with her. Or at least if he wants the guy, his older friend there as well, he should have messaged me to say, hey, can my older friend come along? Which is not what you should do on a date. Because you usually want to spend time with a girl, dancing with her and kissing her. This is where Pakistani guys and people like that come unstuck, because they're very loyal to their male friends at the same time as wanting to be with women. And it's like, dude, at the end of the day, you've got to make a choice and decision that you either go with your friends coming all the time, or you spend actually sometimes going with your girl, going with the girl you're interested in, or you all dance together and you invite her with you and your friends, but you really want time where you're kissing and cuddling on your own with that girl. Do you know what I mean? They've got it completely backwards. You know, it's like they are so loyal to their male friends, more loyal to than they are to women. And if they had the same level of enthusiasm and loyalty to girls or women as they did their guy friends, they would have much better romantic sexual relationships, if you like. And they don't have that because they just think about being with their guy friends, and their guy friend a lot of the time will ditch them to be with a girl anyway. So it's kind of like, where does your loyalty lie? Right. And you can see, like, in a lot of these guys live together, right? They live together. They see each other every single day. They don't need to be going clubbing and seeing each other all the time as well. They could spend time with the girl. Do you see what I mean? You know, and those guys eventually, a lot of them will probably get girlfriends, unless they, or some of them won't. They'll just go clubbing and have sex with loads of different women. But, you know, at one point, some of them will get girlfriends, or even probably get married and stuff and live with their partners. And then those other guys will just be left on their own, or they may make more friends, but they'll end up a bit lonely, you know what I'm saying? So they need to understand that if you're dating and you say you're going to be there dating, you show up early for the girl, you take her hand, you walk with her, you treat it like a proper date, not some sort of playground. So don't treat a girl like that. Don't lie to her. Don't cheat on her. If you don't want to date her, then don't ask to date. Right? Because I said, "Oh, you're not," he said, "Oh, you're not going to be in the club." I said, "You asking me on a date?" And he said, "Yes." Right? If it's not a date, then he should have said it's not a date. So he should have not said it's a date, you know? And at the end of the day, he stood me up. It was crap behavior from him, but I had a better night with his friend. Much better, who his friend was really into me. That's what I liked about the older guy. His friend was a lot more experienced and knew how to touch me correctly. He's really good at kissing me, and very made me feel like really like he was more into me in the sense of kissing, because he kissed me even more when I wasn't, not even on the lips, if you know what I mean, some of the time. So what happened was, I was dancing with his friend for like I didn't know I didn't totally know the relationship between them at this point. I knew that it seemed like they knew each other and they were like friends, because they were the younger guy was pulling him away. But I didn't at that point know that they actually seemed that they lived together. Yeah, he didn't say, like, the older guy didn't know I knew the younger guy. This is what I didn't find out to the end as well. The younger guy had never mentioned to the older guy they had a date with a girl. So the older guy wasn't even aware that I knew the younger guy. Because when I was walking, he walked me home at the end, like when the club had finished. The older guy, I said, "Do you know the younger guy that was trying to dance with you?" He's like, "Oh yeah, he's my friend." Like, because we in Exeter's like 3 community groups of Pakistani guys, and he's in my group basically. And this older guy told me where he lives, and it's exactly the same area, like road, as the other guy. So I think they live together, I'm assuming, or very close to each other. So I'm assuming they live in the same house. That's what I'm assuming, but I don't know if that's true. But they live in the same road. So yeah. But the older guy didn't know I knew the younger guy. And I didn't say that the younger guy stood me up, because there was no point. I did mention something about, oh, there was a younger guy, but he wasn't right for me. Who, and he's like, "Oh, what guy?" I just go, "Oh, some guy that wasn't right for me." I didn't say when it was or who it was. So I don't know if the younger guy will mention anything to the older guy. But if he's got a lot of pride and ego, probably not. Because at the end of the day, the younger guy was the one who was a liar. The younger guy was the one who stood me up and had a better time with his friend. So that all worked out really well for me. And I saw him go off partway through the night. So I presume he went home, unless he went to another club. I'm assuming he went home, because I'm assuming he got bored because no one was dancing with him. And it's like, well, you shouldn't stand the girl up. You could have spent all night dancing and kissing with me. The older guy would have probably found some other girl. And so, but I was glad the older guy chose me to dance with last night. And so what happened was like about after an hour or hour and a bit dancing with the older guy, I don't know exactly how long it was. Um, then he said, "Oh, I need a rest," and I was glad because my leg hurts. I think it was because I did a load of food shopping yesterday, and I carried a case, and I think it must have bashed against it because you can't actually see any damage to it. But I've got fibromyalgia, so you can end up getting pain, and it's not visible like there's any damage to the area. So anyway, this older guy at one point said, "Oh, I need a rest." But I was thinking that's good because my leg is really hurting. It's hard to dance with my leg hurting. And so anyway, I didn't tell him my leg was hurting. So we went like there's like in the Revolution nightclub, there's like some rooms which are really good because they have like sofas or well not, is it sofas? No, they had chairs where I sat. Just chairs and tables and stools and tables. And so anyway, we sat at the back and then he was like basically that's when he started kissing me. So I was at that point thinking, do I allow him to kiss me? But I'd already worked out at like the hour before or whatever that I would be okay with him kissing me because I knew he wanted to kiss me because I saw him looking. When a guy wants to kiss you, he looks like round your lips. So I knew that he was interested in kissing me. So I'm like, wow, okay. I thought this is gonna happen for real. So I'll see how it feels, right, to kiss an older guy. Right, so he started kissing me. I love tongue kissing the most. So I was tongue kissing the younger guy the night before and tongue kissing the older guy last night. And it felt really good actually. So first of all, I was like, oh, this is interesting because there's an older guy tongue going in my mouth. But he's teethy, like he likes to do biting a bit. And I kept saying, I did have to tell him quite a few times that I don't like teeth. I don't like teeth. I really do not like teeth with kissing. He likes it, but I know that heterosexual guys that are very sexual, it's kind of a sexually aggressive thing. But I don't like any aggression. He wasn't doing it in an aggressive way. He wasn't doing it so he hurts me, like as in it really hurts. But obviously, if you got someone who's like putting teeth on the lips or a tongue, it does hurt more in comparison to not doing that, if you know what I mean. So I had to tell him a few times, but the problem with highly heterosexual guys is they feel like they can't control themselves. Like they can't control some of it, they can control. And he was controlling himself a lot with me, which is good. But it's kind of like they get this in their head that they have to be a certain way. Like they think they're like kissing with teeth is a highly sexual erotic thing to them, like the greatest, deepest passion. And to me, it's really not. To me, it's like biting someone or nibbling someone or using teeth is not kissing to me. It's like biting. You know what I mean? It's like it's not passion, it's like aggression, really. It's sexual aggression. But he wasn't doing it in an aggressive way. Like I didn't feel like, oh, I need to leave because he's really hurting me. He wasn't really hurting me or anything like that. But you know what I mean? It's like type thing. Like but it's like it's not nice. I don't like that. So I had to tell him a few times about that, which is a shame he didn't actually take that on board fully. Because he did for a while and then started doing it a bit later again, like well, quite much later again. So it's like I did have to tell him numerous times about that, but it wasn't really bad. But it's a shame I had to tell him multiple times, if you know what I mean. So anyway, so he was kissing me at the table, like we were sat like on chairs each. I wasn't sat on his lap, I was sat next to him kissing him, but we were kissing loads. But a lot of the time there wasn't many people at that area. There was like people, but some people coming by to go to the toilet near there, and some people saw us kissing. But a lot of the time, like we were mostly on our own. But he was really good at kissing, like sensual kissing. So at one point we were cuddling as well. So it was like kind of like non-stop, nearly, apart from I went to the toilet a couple of times, non-stop kissing and cuddling for like hours. And it's the most I've ever like had a kissing session for, if you know what I mean. I'm like, oh my lord, that's like the most I've ever done that. And it was better because he was foreign. Like the last guy I did that with was British, which I did really like. But this guy was really into it with me. Like he was as romantic as I was, I felt, as passionately kissing as I was. Because he said, "Oh, you're so romantic to me." And I like that about him. I said, "Oh, you're romantic too." He's like, "Yeah." I said, "I like kissing." He's like, "Oh, I like kissing a lot as well." So he loved kissing a lot, and I like kissing a lot. So we were really physically compatible in that way, right? And I could tell he was really into me. Like, compared to the younger guy was more interested in his own genitalia, more interested in getting a sexual thrill, more interested in getting aroused. It was more with the younger guy, it was more about him experiencing physical sensations in his body, him getting his sexual needs and desires met in a kissing sense. It was all more centered around him. Whereas with the older guy, it was much more centered around, like, what can I do for you? How can I make you feel like I he didn't love me, but in the moment he gave me the experience of feeling and being loved, if you know what I mean, with the way he was holding me and cuddling me and kissing me and stroking me and stuff like that. Stroking my I'm not stroking me in bad places. So he gave me the experience that I really liked, because when I was in a heterosexual relationships for years, I was with a guy for 8.5 years until 8.5 years in total, because we were together for a year and a half and split up and then ended up being back together for 7 years. He wasn't a good guy in many ways because he was very abusive, but he wasn't abusive sexually. And I liked things like kissing with him. Me and the guy I was in a relationship with for like 8.5 years in total, we were always kissing. Like, we kiss when we go to theme parks, zoos, aquariums, be kissing supermarkets, high street, doesn't matter. And I loved that about him. I loved that type of freedom in a relationship. I don't give a shit what people think, because I think life is too short. Why do I care what people think? They can choose to look away. They can choose to walk away. They can choose to be in their own zone. They don't have to look at me kissing, right? If I see two people kissing, I just think great for them. They're enjoying the moment, because life is too short. You do not know if you're going to be alive in the next millisecond, right? Life is too short to care what others think. I love being free. I've told you on this channel before that I'm a very different, unique, asexual person even. Like, my needs are a lot different to other people's. My needs are very, like, similar to heterosexual needs, but without the sex, which makes life very difficult for me in terms of getting a relationship. And so, but it's all based on kissing, sensuality for me, passion without the sex. And it seems like the only way I can currently get that type of need met is by going clubbing and kissing guys in clubs. The right guys, like ones I'm aesthetically attracted to, foreign guys usually, not usually British that much. I haven't had a long kissing session with a British guy since 2017, I think. No, it's not 2017, 2019, I think it is. 2019 or 2020, it might even be. It's about 3 years ago, I think. I'm in 2023 now, so I can't even remember because it's a British guy. I remember foreign guys much more. And so anyway, I really liked this older guy, like, kissing me. So he was kissing me probably for like over an hour in the club. It was a very good experience. I don't even know how long the club was open till. I think it was open till 2, but it might have been longer than that. And so we were kissing the whole rest of the time until the club shut, basically. And, with my ex, I was going back talking about my ex. The thing I liked about my ex, he would always put my own, because I did have sex with the last long-term ex, and he would always put my needs above his own in terms of the sex, not in terms of everyday life, which is really weird. In terms of everyday life, it's like, I'm not buying a decent bed for us because I don't want to spend money on that. I'd rather spend money on video games and the latest clothing to look cool. Even though, like, the bed that I stayed over his place because we didn't live together, but the bed was clearly, like, hurting me because of the springs and stuff like that. And he would have curtains that were like, he wouldn't even draw the curtains properly in his bedroom. He'd, like, have the curtains hanging off the hook, so I couldn't sleep properly because the light was shining. And he really didn't give a toss about me like that. He couldn't care less. That's in complete contrast to the way he was sexually with me, when he was like, he would kiss me and touch me. He would be like making me feel like passionate and sensual and doing stuff to me physically to give me pleasure more than I was doing to him. And so I liked that. Like, I think when a guy puts a woman's needs first, whether it's sexually, passionate kissing, sensually, I think it's just such a better experience, because the woman, I guess, lets her guard down more. She's more receptive to the passion and romance and kissing, and it makes you feel more alive, more able to be sensual or sexual, more able to be yourself, because there's like, you feel like so good about yourself. Like, this older guy made me feel so good about my body, about the way I looked. he wasn't going around saying you're beautiful. It was just the way he acted with me. It felt like he thought I was really beautiful and gorgeous. You know what I mean? The way he was touching me. Like, he would even, like, because I was wearing a top that had, like, how can I put it? It was a top where he was touching the side of my tummy, basically. So I'm not a skinny girl. So he was touching a part of me that wasn't skinny, which usually I don't like guys doing that, because usually, like, especially younger foreign guys, some of them, they're like commented on my weight. And it's like, hang on a minute. You're on a date with me. I don't ever say that I'm a skinny girl. I'm not a skinny girl. And yet sometimes they refer to that. It's like, you know what I mean? If they do something like that, it just puts me off them, and it makes me feel I can't be myself around them and can't be physically comfortable. And that's the wrong thing to say to someone if you want to get intimate with someone. So younger guys need to learn that, if you're gonna say about, if you don't like a girl's weight, then don't even kiss her in the first place, right? If you want a skinny girl, there's girls that are a lot bigger than me, but I am not a skinny girl, And so I like my food. I eat generally pretty much healthy. And, I'm a voluptuous girl, and I need a guy that loves a curvy, beautiful, voluptuous girl that's into that. And I felt this guy was much more into that. And I have felt that with, like, older foreign guys. They tend to be, um, more open and receptive, and more even liking uh curves and voluptuousness and the fuller figure. Whereas I find that some of the younger guys, some, not all, but some of them are much more like stereotypical, expecting a girl to be a certain thin weight. You know what I mean? Which is really off-putting. It's like, why would a girl feel comfortable who's bigger being around a guy who's making comments like that? It's just a put down and just being ridiculous. And they're not, in order to have passion and sensuality and even sex, you need to make the woman feel absolutely beautiful and gorgeous about her own body, because only then is she going to be wanting or able or capable of, like, really wanting you to touch her. It's common sense, but these guys don't really have it. They're very selfish, some of the guys. I found that the older guy was a lot less, he wasn't totally less selfish, but he was a lot less selfish in the sense of the physical touching and the passion and the sensuality. He was more about making me happy. Like, so at one point we were cuddling, and he was like giving me little kisses all down the back of my neck, all down my back. And he was just holding me like this, and it was so nice. It felt so loving and caring and beautiful and passionate and sensual. And I was just like, I was eating, actually, because I said I need to eat something because I get low blood sugar, as you know, on this channel. And I had like a naked bar, which is like natural nuts and fruit pressed together. I said, I've got to eat something. This is when I came out from the toilet. So I'm there eating, and then he's like cuddling me like this, kissing my neck, kissing my back. Lots of little sensual kisses, all like that. And it was so lovely. Like, and I'm like, oh, I can just sit here and he's just kissing me all the time. I don't even have to do anything. I don't even have to kiss him. I don't even have to touch him. I'm eating my food. Obviously, I was touching him because he had his arms around me, but I wasn't like kissing him or touching him in like that. I was just enjoying my food. And like, this is an asexual dream, is it not? Like, if you're really romantic and like kissing, or sensuality, should I say, because you're eating some food, which is like really nice for asexuals. You're being kissed all over parts of your body that are non-sexual, really sensual and enjoyable. So you're having the pleasure of the food in your mouth and the pleasure of the guy kissing you in places you love to be kissed, and just feeling amazing. So it's such a special moment with him. It was really beautiful, and I loved that. I was aware at this point in my brain the guy's not even asked me for my name. If a guy is doing all this stuff and not asked you for your name and not asked you for your number, then he's not really serious about you to take it forward after this, right? He just wants a kissing in the moment or the sex, which is what they're usually after, right? And I'm thinking, I can't believe you've not even asked my name. Like, we've been like kissing for ages, we've been dancing together for ages. You can't even be asked to ask my name, which was a bad thing about him. That was very bad. He didn't ask my name. He didn't ask my number. So at this point, he had no other way of getting in contact with me. But then I was thinking, okay, this is fine. But consciously, I'm thinking this is only going to be a one-off, that you're kissing him unless we happen to see each other in a club again, or unless he happens to ask for your number later. Because, he hasn't asked for your name. He hasn't asked for your number. You do not do that with him. It's up to the guy to do that, be a man. Guys need to learn a lot of things about being a guy. I can teach them. And it's like the way to behave with women. Like some of them just don't have a clue. But clearly, as the guy was older, he was a lot more experienced. And I liked that about him. I felt a lot more physically comfortable around him. I did feel like he was touching, like I said, part my side, which is obviously, you've got a bit of meat on your side when you're not a skinny girl. And I was thinking, oh, he seems to like that. He was like stroking it really sensually. And so I felt really comfortable about my body being bigger. And I'm like, oh, this is really nice. He seems really into it. And he was totally different to the younger guy in that way. Like he was holding my hand when he went to the bar. And I felt like he really wanted to hold my hand the whole time. He really wanted to be in physical contact with me the whole time I was with him. And I really liked that about him. There wasn't much time. There was a little bit of time when we danced without touching, but most of the time he just came back to me and started holding my hand again. And I like that because I like a lot of physical contact. It's really important for me with the right guy. I mean, obviously he was just the right guy in that moment. He wasn't the right guy forever. And so I'm learning to discipline myself with like going out, kissing different guys and learning to cut off. But I was still upset about the younger guy. I had some upset. But I had an amazing time with the older guy, and aesthetically, I'm still attracted to younger guys the most. But I still had better time with the older guy. So my actual experience was better with the older guy than the younger guy because the older guy was better at kissing, really. He knew where to kiss me, how to kiss me. He was like, apart from he was teeth, so the younger guy didn't have the teeth issue going on. But the older guy, like, was just like much more into kissing, much more into my body type, I would say, and much more better at touching me in non-sexual places without me having to worry. I don't want to be worried as an asexual girl that I've got to tell a guy to do not touch this, do not touch that, and keep telling him this. It's like too much for me to worry about, too much anxiety that I can't enjoy the kissing moment or the sensual moment. Do you see what I'm saying? You don't want to be getting like that, even if you ever get into a relationship with a heterosexual, which is very difficult for them not to have sex with you. But if you do, then you need to know that you're with someone who completely respects your boundaries, who's not going around doing stuff that you don't want to do, because it just puts you on edge and makes you anxious all the time. And I was really anxious about meeting up with the young guy in case he was going to be doing all that stuff again. And also, there was loads of red flags with him. But I'm so glad I went. I'm so glad it all turned out. I had to just trust myself that everything would work out really well. I can take really good care of myself. And the club's not far from my home, so it's easy for me to just walk home if I really don't like it or don't like a guy. I can just leave easily. And so anyway, but the whole experience with this older guy is really amazing, and I really liked it a lot. But I'm assuming that he goes to that club a lot and just ends up trying to have sex with girls and stuff. I thought probably he's that type of guy. But anyway, so he walks me home and then says that he lives just because it's like I said, oh, I've got to go home now. And he's like, he did make a comment earlier when we were kissing in the club that, oh, I could just sleep with you all night like this in your arms. And I know that's to see if I'm the type of girl that will say, okay, you can come back to mine and do that. But I never said that. I just thought, oh, thanks. Or you're so romantic, right? So if you're an asexual person and you don't want to like stop the romantic moment, you can just say something like, oh, that's really romantic, or thank you. If you say that's really romantic, then obviously they might think, oh, that means I am going to come in her place. So I think I just said, oh, thanks, or that's nice, or something. I can't remember what I said. I said something that meant that I was still keeping the romance going, but without actually inviting him back to my home, basically. I think I saw, you're so romantic and loving, or something like that, I said to him. Which he was actually. So then after the club, like I said, he was going to go another way, and I'm like, oh, I gotta go home. He's like, oh, like, do you need to get a taxi? I know, no, I live near here. He's like, oh, whereabouts? I said, down there. And he's like, oh, I live that way. So we were walking down together. He was holding my hand out of the club the whole time, not like the younger guy who, with the younger guy, I said, if we're going on an actual date, I expect you to hold my hand in public, which I knew would probably put him off as well. If he's the type of guy that doesn't want to be seen with me in public, because really it's all bravado in the club. So anyway, the older guy didn't even have to ask. I loved that about him. So there was advantages and benefits to being in a kissing scenario with an older guy. Like, he would just take my hand and he held it really tight when we were going out of the club. It wasn't like loose. It was like really tight and proud. Like, I'm with this girl. Let's walk out together. you know, and I really loved that about him. Like, it feels like with him, it felt like a lot more protective. I was a lot more secure and safe with him. I felt like a deeper connection with him, probably in a romantic way, in sense I was more aesthetically romantically attracted to the younger guy, but I was more sensually attracted to the older guy, which sounds weird. Why would I be more sensually attracted to an old guy? Probably because he was really good and made me feel completely safe. But I was physically comfortable with the younger foreign guy, but I was more sensual, I'd say, with the older guy. I don't know if that makes sense, but overall, I'm still much more attracted to younger guys, like aesthetically, in terms of a long-term relationship, in sense of kissing and stuff like that. In my mind, I'm still attracted more to younger guys. Like, it would be hard, I think, for me to be with an older guy in a relationship for a long period of time, but then I thought they're more likely to be able to maybe not cheat. But I think I'm wrong about that. So yeah, very wrong, because he turned out to be a very sexual guy, but I didn't know that. I mean, I knew he was sexual, but I didn't know how sexual he was. So anyway, he walked me home and he said, "Oh," I said, "that's when we walked together." And I said, like, he's like, "Oh, I live up here." And I'm like, "I live down there." So he lives up the one part of the road one part of the street I'm on. There's two, they're in Exeter, there's a street, and there's like one end of a street and another end of the street, which is called a different name. And so I live down the one part and that person lives at the other part. But he's like, "Oh, I live there." He didn't tell me exactly which house it was, but I'm assuming he lived with the younger guy, because that's when I said, "Oh, do you know that younger guy?" And he's like, "Oh yeah, he's my friend because we're in like communities together." So he didn't say, he goes, "Oh, I know him." I didn't think he totally said they like he's a really good friend. It's like, "Oh, we know each other, yes, because we're in these communities together." So I don't think he actually said, "Oh, he's my really good friend," or anything like that. But he said that, "Oh yeah, we know each other because we're like kind of like communities together and we all, know each other and things like that." So I think he lives with him though. But he didn't know that the young guy knew me. And I'm like, "That's crazy." Um so clearly the younger guy never even said about me, which is disappointing, but but it's better that it happened that way, because otherwise this older friend might have thought twice about being with me. And if the younger guy stood me up, then I can kiss who I want and dance with whoever I want. And so anyway, he walked me back to my home, and then we were kissing outside my home. I didn't let him in. So we were kissing for a long time, a long time. So in total, I think we were kissing predominantly all the time for 5.5 hours. Like, because by the time I went in my home, it was like about 20 past 4, I think it was, in the morning, coming up to 4:30 a.m. And I went in the club at a little after 11, like 11:15. And he started dancing with me probably about 11:30, or maybe 11:45. I don't know. I wasn't there that long when he started dancing with me. So I'm assuming it's about 11:30. So from 11:30 till like 4:30, maybe that's like nearly 6 hours actually. Oh no, because we're doing an hour of dancing. So 5 hours, is it? Something like that. It's definitely like 5. I would say 5.5 hours probably. It's probably from kissing from like, I don't know. No, it'd be 4.5 hours, wouldn't it? So I'm guessing we did an hour of dancing, so it's probably like 4 hours of kissing. Yeah, 4, because I got back to my home, went in my home like 4:20 something, I think it was. And if I got there like nearly 11:30, that would give me 4.5 hours, an hour dancing or something. I don't know. So it's probably about 4 hours of kissing. Yeah, summed it up as 7 hours. I'm thinking it's not 7 hours. But anyway, it was still really nice to kiss for that length of time, and I really enjoyed it. I'm like, "Oh," and I got all my kissing needs met with him. So that was really good. Apart from the biting was like the nibbling was not good. But everything else was pretty good. There was sometimes that when he touched me, it was a bit firm as well, because I've got pain conditions that I did say that hurts a bit, because I told him in the end I had a pain condition, but I didn't tell him the rest of the time. So yeah, I told him I had unseen disabilities. I don't even know if he understood what I was saying. But anyway, so what happened is I had a really not time kissing him. We were kissing in the street. He's like, oh, no one cares here. Like, it's different in Pakistan. Nobody cares if you kiss in the street. So what was lacking, the younger guy, him holding my hand out the club, kissing me passionately in the street, the older guy was really into, and I really liked that. But we were talking, and I'm like, and he's like, oh, it was on about us seeing each other again. Well, first of all, he was hinting all the time about coming in my place. Like, he wasn't outrightly asking. He was just saying, oh, I can't leave you. I can't go. I'd love to spend like time in your arms, just kissing you. And I'm like, I don't have guys in my home, just so you know, like, I don't have them. And anyway, we got onto talking about him, because I said, we got to talking about him, and I don't know how it came about. I don't know if it's because, I think it was because he asked me about meeting up again. And I think then I said to him, so, like, I think I somehow checked if he was single or not. I can't remember what happened. But we was talking, and then all of a sudden, he revealed to me the truth, which I was highly disappointed and shocked in. He revealed to me that he's separated, right? So he's married man, still not divorced and separated from his wife. And I'm like, have you got kids then? He's like, yeah, 2. I'm like, how old? He's like 1 and 3. I'm like, oh my God, I cannot believe I'm kissing a married man. Like, this goes against what I believe. This is really, like, I can't believe I've done that. But he lied to me, because he told me he'd been in this country 9 years, and he revealed to me it's like 8 months. And he left because of the way she was. And so when I asked him about that, I thought that he'd done something bad with her, and it wasn't. It was the opposite way, that she likes someone else, basically, putting it bluntly. And so I'm like, oh. And so, yeah. So I understand why he's separated, but he's not divorced. And I'm like, and he's like, oh, you don't get divorced in Pakistan just like that. It's frowned upon and all the rest of it. Elders, family, blah, blah, blah. And anyway, and they still think there's a chance they might get back together, like resolve the issue, because they're not actually divorced. And I'm like, so why are we here doing this? Do you know what I mean? Like, I was completely in shock. He goes, I really like your company, and don't think about it. He goes, I said, but you're married, and I never thought I'd be kissing a married man in my entire life. He's like, oh, well, it's a new experience for you. But, he lied to me, and I didn't know that. And he's separated. So it's really weird. I didn't know how to react to that, apart from utter shock. I did still kiss him a bit, but not so much. He's like, oh, you've lost the romance. Like, you know what I mean? And it's like, well, I didn't know what to do. I thought I clearly he's not going to be a suitable guy for me, because he was talking about, because what happens with foreign guys, some guys, they say, I love you, but it's not like, I love you, I want to spend the rest of my life with you. It's like, oh, I love you as in I'm loving this moment with you, and I feel love for you in the moment. Basically, that's what it means. So I've had to learn all this on my various experiences. And so he was talking about seeing me again. And I'm like, you haven't even asked, like, how would that happen? He's like, oh, I can get your number. I said to him, I said, you haven't even asked me my name, so you can't really like me that much. I said this to him like later on, when I found out after that he's still married. And I'm like, you're not serious about someone if you're like not even asking their name. And anyway, he eventually revealed to me as well. I said, so you're a guy who likes sex? And I said, so be honest with me, like, how much sex have you had, like, since you've been in the UK? And he's like, I can't even count it. It's been that much, like lots and lots. I'm like, so you're a highly sexual guy who absolutely loves sex? He's like, yeah, which is the opposite to me, because I've got to mention to you that I did reveal I'm asexual, because I said to him, and while I was outside my house, I said, I love kissing, but not sex. And we ended up having a conversation, and he was talking about the stuff in Pakistan and his religion and Islam and all that lot. And he was talking about it's not natural to not want sex. I said, well, it is for me. And he's like, oh, it's natural for a man and a woman to have sex. And then at this point, first of all, I said, I don't like sex. I didn't straight away reveal I'm asexual. But he starts talking about gay guys, saying it's not natural for two guys to be together. God made man and woman to be together. It's not natural for two women to be together. Like in the UK, you have gay and lesbians. What's going on with that? I said, well, in your country, it's repressive. Like you're getting married for because your family want it. And he's like, oh, I got married for love. She loved me and I loved her. It's a love marriage, not like just an arranged marriage. But he said in Pakistan you can't even see the woman like in person until you get married, basically. And he was telling me all about the culture, which I know quite a lot of his stuff anyway, but not all of it. So it's interesting for me to know more about it. But I was saying it's so repressive. It's like something out of the 60s, you know what I mean? I'm like, it's so repressive. It's like you still have a choice. You still have a choice where you follow all the Islam or not. You still have a choice whether you like whether you abide by your culture's rules. You still have a choice who you be with, where you get married or not. It's still your choice. You're still an adult. I said, I don't understand why the guys over Pakistan don't just stand up to their parents and say, hey, I really appreciate the fact you gave birth to me, but like, I don't owe you the rest of my life. Like, and I'm just say like, I'm choosing to be with this person. That's it. And I'm not doing this. You know what I mean? Like, until guys speak up for themselves and speak out in India and Pakistan and stop thinking they owe their whole life to their parents just because their parents gave birth to them and took care of them, which is it's your natural birthright. If someone gives birth to you, it's their responsibility to look after you after you're born. That's your basic human needs and rights. It's not like a privilege where you've got to pay your parents back for the rest of your life by taking care of their needs and paying for their food and paying for their keep and doing what they say and marrying who they tell you to marry and being with who they tell you to be with. It's ridiculous. Can you not see how backwards and illogical that is? It's just crazy. That's my personal opinion. Might not be popular, but at the end of the day, it's like it's so repressive. You should be free to do what the hell you want. You're separate to your parents. You're not them. You haven't got the same personality as them. You haven't got the same soul as them. You haven't got the same desires and likes and dislikes as them. You're a completely separate entity. So you shouldn't be behaving and entertaining the idea of being like them and making yourself do what they want you to do. I know you wouldn't say it's making yourself, but at the end of the day, it's societal pressure and expectations and conditioning, generational conditioning. Until you break free of that, the guys come over here, foreign guys in the UK, so they can have loads of sex with women because they can't get it in their own country. So they go crazy over here. When they're over here, they're like, oh, let's get sex with as many women as I can because I've got the freedom now. Whereas I think if they were like, less repressed over that, they wouldn't be so like sexual animals over here in theory. But maybe I'm wrong about that. But anyway, so this guy's had loads of sex. And I'm saying, so you really love sex. So but he didn't reveal that to me till later, obviously, because I asked him. But when he was saying like it's not natural for two guys to be together or women or trans, he's like, what's that? I said, I have gay friends, I have lesbian friends, and I have trans friends. It's natural. Love is love. He's like, but it's meant to be man and woman. That's what God made. I said, you need to be more open-minded. That love is love. Where it's two guys, I said, I think it's great if I see two guys kissing. He's like, what? I said, I think it's great if two guys kiss. I said, if I was born a guy, I'd be gay, but I'm not born a guy. I'm born a woman. But if I was born a guy, I'd be gay. And he's like, I said, I have trans friends. One of my friends, I said to him, like sex with guys. It's like, oh my God. And I'm like, yeah, it's like, and anyway, I said to him, I said, so what sexual orientation do you think I am then? I'm like, come on, what sexual orientation do you think I am? Tell me. And I said, because I don't like sex. He goes, oh, I think you're like you're lying about that. You're not being honest. I said, I genuinely don't like sex. I don't get the need for it. It's like everyone does. It's natural. I said, I don't. I said, I'm asexual in sexual orientation, which is a lack of sexual attraction. I said, you can Google Sandra Bellamy and asexuality. You'll see me all over the internet. I help asexuals like me. I'm a YouTuber. I've got my own show called Asexualise My Asexual Life. I wrote books for asexuals. Like, it's a real thing. I don't experience any sexual attraction whatsoever. And he's like, oh, you're very good at holding yourself back. I've been holding myself back with you. I said, but I'm not holding myself back. I don't get the urges. I don't get the need or want for sex. there's nothing to hold back because I don't get that. You know, like, you control yourself. I said, there's nothing to control because I don't have the need, urge, want for sex. I can kiss for hours. It never makes me want to have sex. But he did say, before he told me he really loves a lot of sex, he said about all the kissing, he said, oh, you're so romantic. You don't know how romantic you are. And he's like, I love spending time with you, like being with you. He's like, you're so romantic. Because he kept saying, you don't know how romantic you are. I'm like, I do. Like, I'm really romantic. I agree with you, basically. And he's like, I said, in the end, I said I'm a hyper romantic and hyper kisser. But he kept saying that kissing is much better than sex because sex only lasts like 10, 20 minutes, half an hour. Whereas kissing lasts for hours, like, you know, like you're excited for hours. And I said, exactly. Sex is so boring. But it's really weird that he was agreeing with me that kissing's better. Yeah, I still love sex. He's like, yeah, because when you have sex, you just release that. And so therefore it's over. But when you're kissing for ages, you don't release it. So you're always like, you know, so you're always excited. So it's better because the feeling of excitement lasts longer. I'm like, exactly. Sex is boring. Kissing is much better. It's just boring. Sex is just boring. Kissing is far much better. And it's like, but I've really controlled myself with you. Like, it's really hard for me. But he says, I think it'd be hard for any guy to be with you. So in the end, he thought it was okay for me and him to meet up sometimes if I wanted company, like to kiss and spend time with. And like, so he was suggesting, I said, because he was suggesting stuff like, because he was saying about like seeing me again earlier, and then he was saying like, oh, what you want, like boyfriend and girlfriend. And then he was like suggesting like relationship type stuff. But then when I found out he's married and not divorced, he's separated but not divorced, I'm like, well, we can't be in a relationship like that. And he was talking about, oh, I can't spend the night away from you and I'd want to live with you and all the rest of it. I'm like, I can't live with a guy anyway. And then when I found out it was like sex all the time, he's going, oh, but I can refrain myself from you. I said, yeah, but you can do that forever. He's like, no. And I'm like, so like, I've got to go now, you know? I said, because I deserve a guy that can love me and be with me without sex, and you aren't that guy. You're not the right guy. You know, you're not that guy. I need to find the right guy for me. I deserve a really good guy, because I think we're going to find it hard to get someone, because most guys, like especially in clubs and stuff, they just want sex and they lie and stuff. I thought, clearly, you know. And he said, I think you're going to find it really hard, because it's hard for a heterosexual guy to hold back that urge and to keep himself like that, you know, sacrifice that. I said, I know. But there are asexual guys out there, but I deserve a good guy. I deserve a guy who'll love me without sex, who'll be with me without sex and totally love me, you know, of who I am, basically. And so I started getting tearful. I said, look, I've got to go now because I'm getting upset now. So he didn't get my number. He didn't, you know, he did ask my name. I told Sandra, and he told me his name, which began with S as well. And yeah, and it's a shame because I think he had a really nice time with me. And I think he did feel very loved by me, very cared for. So he had a good experience with me. I mean, he's separated because his wife likes someone else, basically. And so that is hurtful, you know. That is hurtful to him. And he probably had he did enjoy my company. He said, you know, had a really good experience with me because he felt loved and cared for in that moment. I do like to do that, you know. I'm thinking, if I'm going to have an experience with someone, I want to make it good for them. As well as enjoying it myself, you know. But I know that a lot of foreign guys, for example, from Pakistan, those countries, when they come over to the UK, yeah, they can probably get sex, but they still have like this loneliness inside them that's a lack of love. And so I feel that if I'm going to be kissing the guy, going to be physically close, I want to give him that feeling of love, even if I'm not in love with him or loving him in the full essence of the word, if you know what I mean. I feel that, you know, if I'm going to do something, I'd rather do it full on than do it half-heartedly, if you know what I mean. Like, I like stroking a guy's hair and cuddling him because I know it makes him feel so good and protected and cared for and cherished and nurtured and loved. That's what it makes a guy feel, and I like giving that experience to a guy because, you know, that world can feel quite empty sometimes. It can feel quite lonely, and it can feel like some people just don't experience the love. Like they come in this country and it's all different for them and there's no kind of familiarity. But when you're giving someone an experience of love and affection and comfort and caringness, you're actually making them feel secure and grounded and special and loved and cherished in that moment. And I think the world needs more of that love and positive feelings, you know? So I like to give a guy a positive feeling about me. And then if he lies, if he deceives me, if he's bad to me, that's on him. It's not on me. I've given nothing but a loving, caring, boundary driven experience that he should be able to cherish for the rest of his life, regardless of what other women he meets. He probably will never have an experience like that again with another woman in his life, I'm guessing, unless he happens to find someone like me, which is very, very rare. There's not many people in the whole world and universe that loves kissing as much as I do and is that romantic. I'm literally a hyper romantic and hyper kisser. There's not many of us in the world. And so he would have got a really special girl with me, you know? But it's fine, you know? But I'm quite shocked I've ended up kissing a guy who's actually married with kids, because it's not what I wanted for myself all my life. But obviously he tricked me. He said he'd been in the country 9 years. And I said, I thought you were single. He is separated, so it's not like she's just down the road. She's in Pakistan and he's over here. So they actually physically separate from each other. But yeah, it's not good. But yeah, so overall, though, I had a good experience with an older guy and it was nice. And I felt like my tank, my hyper romantic, hyper kisser tank was full up with him. You know, there's no like I didn't get enough kissing with him. No, I didn't get enough sensual touching with him. No, I didn't get enough of feeling being loved by him in that moment. There was none of that with him. It's all full up tank. It's like I'm a hyper romantic, hyper kisser car, and my fuel is kissing and feeling loved and cherished and adored and cuddled and all that type of thing. And it's like it's like you know, when you put your hose or whatever into the, that's gonna sound too sexual, but you know, when you fill up a car with petrol and you're putting that hose thing in to the car to fill it up full of petrol. It's like that, but with kissing and cuddling and feeling loved. Like there's no lack with him. Whereas with the younger guys, like, you're not holding my hand, you're not passionately kissing me on the street. This is like really bad. And I felt like disappointed in the lack of it, and it makes you feel more insecure that way. Whereas a older guy, like, it was a totally good experience with him, apart from my when I found he's married and highly sexual. So I attract the guys that are very sexual and they're attracted to me, and that is the crux of the matter at the end of the day. And it's hard because there's no point in me resisting it. It's the truth that I attract very sexual guys. They're very attracted to me. And really, I guess my ideal scenario maybe is if I can find, or if I do like asexual guys. I'd love to find the right asexual guy for me, but some of the way I am is actually more suited to a heterosexual guy. So in the end, it would be good if I had a heterosexual guy who could either live without sex, which is going to be quite impossible for a lot of heterosexual guys, or one who, like, his kissing turned him on more than sex. And he liked that because he was forever being sexually stimulated by me kissing him, just kissing him, if you know what I mean, and liked the feeling of that excitedness in his body 24/7, because that's what it would be like being with me. He would probably be excited all the time being with me, but that is a lot more passion and energy and excitement and sensuality than it would be when you just have stick it in sex, or when you have sex with someone. You don't get that loving, caring romanticness with the sex stuff. It just doesn't, like, even he was even agreeing with me on that all the time. He was saying, oh yeah, sex like happens and just like for a short period of time, whereas kissing like lasts for hours. I mean, literally he loved kissing me. Like 4.5 hours pretty much with him kissing, 4 hours. Like that is kind of like, wow, you know what I mean? That's my longest time so far. Which I was even surprised about. I'm like, really, you love kissing? And it's nice to get that reciprocated. Like he would have carried on all night. I know he would if I'd have stayed there. You know, so that was like really great. And so I did have good experience with an older foreign guy, older in his 20s. I did have that. Older than his 20s, he was in his 30s. I did have that, and you know, it's really good. But like I said, finding out he's married, still separated, I have to add, he's not like got a wife around the corner. then, it was a shock because I never thought I'd kiss a married guy. It's like really weird. I said to him, I can't believe I'm kissing a married guy. That is so weird. He's like, don't think about that. So I was being honest with you because I told you because I can't be dishonest. But he was dishonest before because he told me he'd been in the country 9 years, then changed it to 8, and that's how he separated from his wife. He's got his like youngest child is only 1. Because I'm thinking, well, you can't have been here 9 years, then can you? If your youngest child's 1, he's like, oh no, I've been here 8 months. So he did lie to me. Oh, it's horrible. But these guys do lie. So it's kind of like really difficult as a hyper romantic, hyper kisser, asexual. But I just have to learn from experiences and know that it's probably going to be the case that if I'm going to be single forever, which might well happen, that I end up having different experiences with different guys in clubs, and that's probably going to be the way it is for me. Unless I'm still looking for the right guy. I'm still open to finding the right guy in a serious committed relationship, but at the moment it's very difficult. I mean, I thought maybe I would be suited to a heterosexual that is physically can't have sex, but still maybe gets those urges for kissing and stuff like that. Do you know what I mean? Maybe an impotent heterosexual guy. But the problem with that is when he kisses me for a long periods of time, he'd probably cure him of his impotence. I know that sounds really weird, but I'm guessing with me, maybe like he wouldn't be impotent anymore after a while because a lot of the impotency is a medical condition. Asexuality isn't. Asexuality is a sexual orientation that's lack of sexual attraction. I don't get the need, urge, or want for sex. Whereas a guy who's impotent, for example, they still get the need, urge, or want for sex, but they can't get it up for some reason. And sometimes it's because of anxiety. Sometimes it's because of depression. Sometimes it's self-esteem issues, self-confidence issues. But you see, if I was kissing a guy who's impotent and had these type of issues, one is like the dopamine and serotonin and stuff like that, oxytocin that's released when you're kissing. It usually puts you on a natural high. So it's quite addictive, actually, kissing. And it makes you feel good. So it kind of overrides a depressive feeling. Because I'm asexual and I'm not putting pressure on the guy to have sex, then the anxiety is much less or reduced or non-existent. And also, because I make him feel loved, special, cared for without sex, again, it makes make him feel good about his body and the way he looks. Because I usually tell a guy, like, I like your hair or like your face or shoulders or whatever I like about the guy. So this improves his self-confidence, his self-esteem, and so all these kind of elements that play out into some impotency problem. I'm not saying this is true for every impotent person, but that plays out in impotency problems. I solve a lot of those problems. So I think if a guy was kissing me a lot and he was impotent, he might actually not be impotent anymore, then want sex with me. And then realize he can probably have sex with a lot of women. But then he might not be able to because it might only be me that usually makes him feel that way. Because I'm very good at giving guys a very loving, caring, feeling cherished, adored experience. And I like that about myself. I really love the fact that even if guys are assholes to me sometimes, before I know they're a complete asshole, before I know they've lied, and before they're like being not good guys to me, which is on them, it's got nothing to do with me, right? If they want to be assholes, they don't deserve to be with me again, right? But in that moment, if I give them some precious time, some feelings of love and cherish and adornment, I feel good about myself. I'm like, my God, you can give this guy this amazing experience, this experience that you probably won't experience again with another woman, to be quite frank with you, because I know I'm very unique and different. I know there's not many women in existence in the world that can kiss for absolute hours with no sex themselves or not get bored. And most of them don't want kissing as much as me. There's hypersexuals in the world that can have sex for like 2 or 3 hours, but there's not many hyper kissers that don't want sex, that just want the kissing. And I can sustain a guy who really likes kissing for that long in terms of excitement and feeling of pleasure. So I do have a gift, and I cherish that about myself. I love the fact that I can, that I'm training myself to be able to give the ability for a guy to feel loved with me and cherished and adored in that moment without trying to get too attached to him. I'm trying to refrain from getting attached to a guy. But obviously there's a little bit of attachment there because I am a person who does get attached easily, usually. But the word easily is feeling more like to me, because I'm training myself to be less attached to these guys, but being able to give them a loving, caring experience at the same time. It's quite difficult for me to do that, but I think, it's very important. I think it's harder for me with younger guys too detached from them, because I'm super attracted more to younger guys. But the experience I had with this older guy was far better, because it was more secure, safe for me, boundary driven, lot more kissing, guy, a lot more into my uh voluptuous figure and my body in general, and it just felt so much better. The you know but he admitted he's really into sex. So just because a guy is older doesn't mean diddly squat. This guy's had a lot of sex. So I sometimes get people asking me, like, why do you like younger foreign guys? Because younger foreign guys in their 20s always want loads of sex. Well, actually, younger foreign guys are often, there's quite a lot of them that are still virgins, even up to the age of 25 or more, or haven't even kissed a girl yet. And like, there's still older for that older guy last night probably was wanted sex, and needed sex more importantly than the younger guy did. And he's like 34 and the younger guy was 22. So the older guy wanted sex a lot more than even the younger guy did. But the older guy is able to control himself more, which makes me as an asexual person feel a lot more secure, a lot more safe, a lot more able to let myself be free with that guy in a sensual, romantic, passionate way. And that is much better. It's a better experience for him. It's a better experience for me, because I don't have to worry about all that shit. I don't have to worry about the younger guy going like this. Like, the younger guy was doing like body movements, and then he's in a message saying to me, but I'm not attracted to you. Like, I'm like, bullshit. It's like, you're sexually attracted to me. No one makes like sex movements without being sexually attracted to someone. It's just bullshit. Like, why bullshit? Like, at least the older guy was not bullshit me about that, he was like quite open about that, when I asked him. But he wasn't open telling me he really loves sex. He was hinting about coming back to my place all the time, the older guy. But he was very respectful. He didn't ask to do that. He didn't pressurize me to do that. He was just gently trying to persuade me with the romance side. But I was like, I like said, I don't have guys in my home, and I was glad that I could tell him I'm asexual. Because he said, I don't believe that you don't like sex. And I explained to him, and he's like, oh, you're good at controlling yourself. I don't have to control myself with sex because I don't get a sexual urge. Honestly, I don't get the need, urge, or want for sex. And it's very clear to me now, the more I kiss, the more I'm not sexually attracted to anyone. Like, this guy I was kissing for like 4 hours, and there's no urge or want for sex whatsoever. Nothing's there. Diddly squat, nothing. Nothing. And that's why I love it, because it validates my asexuality to myself even more. Like, you're genuinely asexual. It is a real thing, because some people, like, they have experience, like, a genuine asexual is not someone who's not having sex because they've been traumatized, right? But there are asexuals that have had trauma, sexual trauma, and sometimes the kind of lines are a bit blurry. So sometimes someone's like me class themselves as become asexual because they've had a bad sexual experience. With me, it's not like that. I have had good sex. I've had bad sex in the past. I haven't had sex since 2011. And I told this older guy, he's like, what? 2011? That's like 12 years without sex. I'm like, yeah. And I'm really happy about that. I am so ecstatic, because I don't want the sex. Like, kissing a guy for 4 hours is bliss to me without the sex. Do you know how good that makes me feel? Makes me feel so excited, like a teenager that I'm born to be. And because it's like teenager love, teenager relationship, teenager like scenario, like teenager like just met and kissing and cuddling scenario, because obviously I'm not in a relationship with that guy. Do you know what I mean? It's so much more exciting. But the fact that he kept agreeing with me that kissing like this is much better than sex, he agreed with me multiple times. I'm like, because he's like, oh, it's over in a few minutes, whereas this has lasted ages. I'm like, but he said he's never kissed that long before, usually about 10 minutes or something. I'm like, oh my God, you've gone from kissing from 10 minutes to nearly basically 4 hours with me, or 4.5 hours. I'm like, that's probably a world record. Well, it's a world record for me so far, but I'm willing to go. I'm willing to go longer than that. I love kissing. Like, it makes me super high in a good way, right? But I just love it, and I do need to eventually find the right guy for me who loves kissing and cuddling and being in a relationship with me as much as I do with him, and just loves that about me, because he's always like on a natural kissing high. But the guy did say, it's so romantic. You're so romantic, like. And he was feeling that. And I need that type of guy. I need a guy who's like, hey, like, Sandra, like, wow, this is what I want all the time, every day of my life. Because he was even saying that sex dies, down, and the passion, the romance dies in relationships. And that's why a lot of people split up, because the romance dies. and it just becomes a boring relationship. I said, exactly my point. Right, it's much. He goes, but being with someone like you is like much better in that way. I'm like, exactly, because the guy's got constant supply of feeling loved, romance, and kissing and excitement 24/7 with me. Basically, it's like being on a high, on a natural high drug, 24/7, basically. But in a natural way that makes you feel so good. I mean, of course, if the guy's an asshole, he's a liar. He's not going to get like my respect in the terms. So I'm going to leave his life. And I'm so happy that I told the younger guy before I was dancing with the older guy that he's not suitable for me. That I can find a better human. And I pretty much found him straight away. And it happened to be his friend. I didn't know at the time. His friend came to me. His friend approached me. His friend didn't want to dance with him anymore because he'd rather have a great experience with me. Yet the younger guy could have done that. But he didn't, because he lied, stood me up, didn't respond to my messages. He was no good for me. And I had a much better experience with his older friend, who approached me, who danced with me, and didn't go back to dance with him. It was a much better experience. So yeah. So I had a great time, but find out that he's still married, separated, but not divorced was a shock for me. And had kids. It's like not something I thought I'd ever be doing in my life. So that's a reason not to kiss older foreign guys, because he's like, oh, in Pakistan we get married young. And I was thinking, of course you do. Like, that makes sense. Like, he's 34 years old. So that makes sense that he would be married with kids. Because it didn't occur to me till much later. And then I asked him, so I started asking him about, him being single. I think I asked him something like that, so are you actually single then? Well, I presumed he was. But I guess I shouldn't have seen. But then, logically, I'm better to go for younger guys who are in the early to mid-20s if they're still a student, because then probably going to be single. So it's better for me to kiss. But then obviously I can't get into a relationship with a younger foreign guy because his parents are probably going to get arranged marriage for him. But there must be some foreign guys surely in the world that buck the trend, or that are born in the UK, that actually are more customized. Is that right? More accustomed to the British culture, and are more accustomed to kissing in the streets, holding hands, are more accustomed to choosing who they want to be within a relationship, don't have to have marriage, can live separately if need be, and stuff like that. It must be some foreign guys, there must be some asexual foreign guys or heterosexual guys that can possibly live without sex or be impotent. But like I said, I think for guys with me who wouldn't be impotent for very long, to be honest with you. And I know that's a big statement, and maybe I'm totally incorrect about that, but I just know that I make a guy very aroused and excited naturally. I do that even just by kissing or writing about kissing in a message. It's like, how does that happen? I've turned asexual guys on. I've had guys who would say they're asexual, right? And they're like, oh, you're turning me on at the moment. I'm thinking, all I'm doing is talking about in a message saying I like kissing, but not sex, basically. And then the guy is like, oh, I'm asexual, but I'm getting really turned on by you. I'm like, this is just the same as how being with a sexual guy. Or usually the sexual guy doesn't verbalize so much that he's being turned on, but they do sometimes if they're on dating sites. I can just feel they're turned on, right? It's a body feeling, you can kind of tell if a guy's turned on. But anyway, so yes, it's been a very eventful night, and I didn't know how to just title this video. I didn't know how to say the title. I could have said, I kissed an older guy. Shocked I kissed an older guy. What's it like kissing an older guy? But I did manage to get the bit about what's it like kissing an older guy. But I thought, or I could have titled this what do you do when a guy stands you up? You go and have fun anyway and end up snogging his best friend or snogging his friend and going off with his friend instead, which is much better. Or I could have titled it a number of ways, oh my God, I kissed a married man. You know what I mean? I don't know which video title to put because they're all suitable, but I don't like the fact that people think I go around kissing married men. I didn't know he was married, and he is separated, which does make a difference, obviously. But yeah, it's shocking to me. A married man with kids. I was like, oh. But it's really weird because I know that he had a really good time with me, because he said, and I know he'll remember the experience with me for the rest of his life. I mean, you don't forget when you've been kissing with someone for 4 hours, you never forget that. Even if you put it to the back of your mind, even if you end up with 10, 35,000 different women, you never forget that unique experience, because I'm very good at giving great experiences to guys, because I know what they need. Because I have been in heterosexual relationships for years. I know what sexual guys need. I'm very good at turning sexual guys on as well, even though either intentionally or unintentionally, and I just like making a guy feel loved and special in the moment, because I think there's a lack of that in the world. And I think if I can do that, if a guy lies to me, which he did, and if a guy treats me badly, that's on him. It doesn't represent my value and my worth. You know, if I'm basically able to give a bit of love to that guy in that moment, I'm thinking, God, you know, I wish this would, you know, like, you can't change a person. I wish that experience would stop him being a liar. I wish that experience would make him treat women better. I wish that experience would make him feel like, oh, I actually want to be in a loving relationship, serious, committed, without the sex, because I realize that the value of actually feeling loved all the time rather than just emptiness and having sex with different women. And there are some guys that recognize that. There's some guys in the world that realize the value of a serious, committed relationship. They're like, you get more love and less emptiness and loneliness by being in a relationship than going around having sex with loads of women, because you get someone who's there for you, who supports you through like difficult times of work, get someone who's emotionally there for you, get someone who makes you feel loved, special, nurtured, cherished, adored all the time, rather than like, I'm going back to my place alone, I want sex now. You know, I'm feeling like if they're in another country, like I'm missing my family, I'm missing my parents, I haven't got any love there in that way. Like, sure, it's nice hanging out with my guy mates, but it's like you don't get that. You don't get that same feeling with your guy mates as you do from a woman who loves you and adores you in that moment or forever. You don't get it. And younger foreign guys don't work this out right till later on. But the older foreign guy, he knows that it's a much better option for him to spend time with me, having a loving, caring experience, than me actually go somewhere. But with me, it doesn't, because I don't have sex, than it is for him to just hang around with his mates that he can see any time of day anyway. The value is more in the girl that can give him all those loving, caring feelings that his mates can't give him. Mates can give him camaraderie and a sense of community and identity in a way, but they can't give them that loving feeling that I can, you know? But younger guys and a lot of foreign guys, they're too clingy with their male friends, and they're too like into their male friends and loyal to them, and they don't realize that they'll get their own lives, their friends will, and then they'll be left like what, in the same situation, not actually feeling the complete love in a committed relationship. But yeah, that's on them, isn't it? So the older guy knew that. Is like, well, I'd rather spend time with this girl who's going to be a much better experience for me than just dancing with my mate who I can do that with anytime. No, I can't get this girl again. So yeah. So anyway, that's the end of that. But anyway, I'm going to love you and leave you for now. Don't give this video a thumbs up if you like it. Please watch the whole videos to understand what I'm talking about in context and how it is as hyper-romantic, hyper-kisser, asexual, clubbing and having my own kissing needs and liking foreign guys and not usually kissing an older foreign guy in his 30s. That's new for me, new experience. But there's been some really good stuff. I feel really good about that. So yeah. Subscribe if you haven't already and hit the bell icon so you never miss an episode. And I'm going to love you and leave you for now. Stay ace as always. And I love you and I adore you. And I'm so happy that I'm asexual and been sex-free for over 12 years. Woohoo! Love it. Take care. Lots of love. Bye. Subscribe and hit the bell icon. Thumbs up.